Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today on the show, we have Deb DeCenza. She is the co-author of the Preemie Parent Survival Guide to the NICU and founder of Preemie World. She wrote the Kevin MD article, COVID-19 is rattling the nerves of preemie parents everywhere. Deb, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kevin.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and your journey to where you are today?
Sure. So my journey started a long time ago in technology and having a background in writing and editing. And how did I end up here? I had a premature baby in 2003, and she was born at 2 pounds, 15 and a half ounces. And she spent 38 days in the NICU and came home on medical equipment. And we've spent the last 17 years, she's almost 17, working through a lot of challenges. It's been quite a journey. Very educational. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about advocating for my daughter that I'm passing on to parents and professionals, which is really important. I actually started Preemie World after I created Preemie Magazine back in 2005, and that ran for 2.5 years. And that magazine was free, went nationwide, and we had partnerships with the March and Dimes and all that stuff. So it was a wonderfully received magazine. Preemie World goes beyond that. We created the Preemie Parent Survival Guide to the NICU, and we have a website filled with information, lots of free stuff, lots of freebies and things that are for parents and professionals, which is amazing. So it's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be sort of a collective of information to help people through that journey. And along the way, I created Preemie Crystal Ball under the name Crystal Ball Health. And that is a portal for information on preemies as they go from birth into adulthood. So it can be self-reported. So we can get better data on outcomes, because the outcomes data is really sketchy still, even 40 plus years out, 50 years out. And I think we can do a lot better, and we can do better drug development as a result. So beyond that, with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, I actually co-founded a nonprofit called the Alliance for Black NICU Families. And our whole goal with that is to have a two-pronged approach and help families through their NICU journey in the Black community, help better their outcomes in a variety of ways. And then beyond that, we are also helping the professional sector by mandating annual racial and health equity education.
We have a lot of physicians, clinicians, and healthcare administrators who listen to this podcast. What would you say is your number one tip that you could share with them to help improve the care of preemies and help preemie parents everywhere?
Number one is teach a parent to be an advocate for their child. It will help not only that baby then and ongoing, it'll help that parent, that family, and it'll help the NICU team, because really, or the pediatric team, whomever they're working with, because really an advocate parent is the one that's watching everything, and an advocate parent is one that speaks up and has your back. If you show you have trust in them, they'll have trust in you. And in that moment, when you really need to make a quick decision, they're not going to question it. They're going to trust you.
Excellent. So let's get into your Kevin MD article. COVID-19 is rattling the nerves of preemie parents everywhere. Now, for those who haven't read your article, can you walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
Certainly. So when COVID started coming through, I noticed a lot of the families I was supporting, and even I was feeling it. My daughter's almost 17 years old. That sense of PTSD, the worries about the immune system, the worries about hand washing, and all those things that we worry about with COVID-19. Parents have already been there. We've already walked that journey, and many of us still walk it in many ways. I still have a hand sanitizer bottle at my front door. That tells you that that journey has not totally ended for us. And now I have added to that Lysol wipes and other things because of COVID-19. It really rattles the nerves of parents. It really sends them down a path of worrying how to protect their child. They're back in that day of the NICU where they're fearful of what could happen. Their kids are still immunocompromised. So, I mean, it could be a real challenge.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was to encourage preemie parents to advocate for their children. Now, what are some specific ways we can do that?
Sit down with the parent. If they are one of those parents that decided to Google everything and print everything out and bring it to the hospital or to the appointment, sit down with them and go through it. I know that takes a little extra time. be mindful of that time. Obviously, with the parent, tell them you only have so much time, but let's go through this real quick. And that parent will learn to trust you. They'll learn to understand your expertise. And I think that's a missing link. The parents see, they'll see the diplomas on the wall, the office or the hospital, but they really don't understand your specialty. They don't know your knowledge. So while you're doing that, you're showing you have knowledge, respect their knowledge too. So make it a partnership. And a true partnership can have great benefits for that child, that baby. So, and for everyone involved.
Tell me something that you've been curious about. I know you talked about some of your projects earlier.
So the Black Lives Matter movement, I mean, I talked about this in meetings, coalitions, conferences for years and said that we are not the NICU. We are not the NICU. The NICU is a very frustrating place for many people. Not everybody has a great experience in pediatrics and everything else. And I explained that we have folks that are really struggling and that we need to do better to help them. And nothing ever came of that. And so that's how sort of this came about. It wasn't just George Floyd dying. It wasn't just Breonna Taylor. It wasn't some of these other people who've been through horrific things. But I support that. I support the Black Lives Matter movement. But I mean, honestly, this has been going on for a very long time in so many different areas. Systemic racism is in healthcare, and we have to be really honest about that and make sure that we're taking steps to eradicate it, because it doesn't just overtly show itself in a room in front of a ton of people. It can be in the corner. It can be quietly behind a door. It can be insidious. It can really make things very uncomfortable for somebody in the most slight way. And they didn't even realize that they were probably doing it. And I think we need to really change that partnership and create that trust again. It's time to do that, because healthcare, that's why I think we are seeing COVID-19 patients in the Black community, why we're seeing such a significant rise, that in the Latina community too.
We're talking to Deb Desenza. She is the co-author of the Preemie Parents Survival Guide to the NICU and is the founder of Preemie World. She wrote the Kevin MD article, COVID-19 is rattling the nerves of preemie parents everywhere. Deb, we often don't hear from the perspective of preemie parents. So now what are some of the other issues that you're hearing that they're concerned about?
Long-term outcomes, definitely, especially when doctors tell them at bedside in the NICU that we may never know, we have no idea why, or we don't know what the outcome is for your child, or they're given a dire prognosis that doesn't equal what it really could be. They just give them a blanket statement. Your child's going to have to, be retarded. Your child's going to be handicapped. Your child's going to have all these issues. And the parents have to make a decision based on what this doctor is saying. And it's hard. It's hard for parents to make a decision to let go of their child based on these things because there's no real statistical evidence behind it. There's not enough sample sizes in those studies. So for me, that's a big problem. We need to increase the sample sizes. We need to increase the research. And that starts with the patients, the patient families doing self-reporting. So that's a big deal with me. Another area is in terms of Black Lives Matter, we need to work on the information getting to the families because they're not getting the information, which is really disturbing to me as a person that provides educational materials and provides resources, to hear that families are not getting the information when a Caucasian family next to them is getting all the information and they're getting nothing. That to me is disgusting, that we would allow that to happen in this day and age. It's not fair. It's not right.
And my final question, do you have a take-home message that you want to share with the Kevin MD audience?
It's all about partnering with the families, with the patient family. That's the key to your success. If you can have empathy, and if you can sit with a family and talk with them for a bit and be honest, I think we need to let go of those legal shackles that are holding us all down. I know it's not perfect. I know they're in place for a reason, but honestly, partnering with the families will make a massive difference, especially in those emergency moments when they have to trust you.
And how can people find you?
PreemieWorld.com, and here's my book. I'm so proud. Our second edition just came out, and we're very excited. Yeah, so PreemieWorld.com. They can go to crystalballhealth.com and blacknicufamilies.org.
Deb, thank you so much for sharing your story and insight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Kevin.